Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Hope everyone had a great time during the holiday seasons with friends and family. Those of us in Nepal, hope you had a safe trip back, or hope you are all safe after a very concerning rainfall we had. On behalf of NACA-CAIPHEN Fellowship Program, Dr. Archana Shrestha, and I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth presentation of our lecture series. Some logistics before we get started. Fellows, please have your camera on. If your internet and Wi-Fi does not allow, then that's understandable. Other guests, please stay muted, but have your name and institute you are affiliated with on your screen so that we don't have any crashers. So without further delays, let's introduce our speaker today, Dr. Pratibha Shrestha. Dr. Pratibha Shrestha is a postdoctoral research associate in the Division of Population Health Sciences at the University of Florida College of Medicine. Before she also held the postdoctoral research associate position at Washington University in St. Louis, School of Medicine within the Division of Public Health Science in the Department of Surgery. Her research focuses on cancer epidemiology and implementation science. She's mostly focusing on research regarding improving cancer screening, specifically with lung and breast cancer, follow up care, and social determinants of health, especially with economic disparities and healthcare access among diverse populations, currently mostly in the US. She's a proud alum of National Open College, Pokhara University, where she did her Bachelor of Public Health before moving to the US. She earned her Master of Public Health and Ph.D. in Epidemiology from Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center, where currently she also holds an appointment as an adjunct instructor. She is a rising star in our population and public health community. In NACA, she co-chairs the program and events committee and also serves as a mentor in this NACA-CAIPHEN Fellowship program. So without taking too much of her time, I'll give the floor to Dr. Pratibha Shrestha.
Thank you, Dr. Sadip Shrestha, for the brief explanation of my trajectory of my career. And good morning, everyone. And it might be evening, good evening in Nepal. And today we are going to discuss on communicating public health research discussion and conclusions. So let me share my slides. Mhm. So can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay. So as I mentioned, it's a Dr. Sadip Shrestha mentioned, I'm a postdoc research scientist currently at University of Florida College of Medicine. And today we will discuss about how to write a discussion and conclusion section for the manuscript. Before we dive into more about the discussion, I would like to acknowledge NACA-CAIPHEN Public Health Fellowship Program Administrative Team, Dr. Sadip Shrestha, Dr. Archana Shrestha, Ms. Archana Pokhrel, and Ms. Pratiksha Paudel to make this happen. And I also like to thank our fellow mentors and participants to show up today. And last but not least, definitely, I'd like to acknowledge our previous speaker who guide you through how to write abstract, introduction, methods, IRB, and overview of manuscript writing leading into results. And after results is a discussion part. So I'd like to extend my gratitude to them. And so let's go through the overview. So for the discussion, initially, after you write the results, you will conclude something out of your results. So which is what we found and what we fill the gap. So we basically discuss about those things in our discussion. And based on your literature, you know what are the limitation and what can be done and how to interpret your results. So basically, after your result, you will discuss what your results implied and how it can be implied in the your section. It's a public health implication as well as how your research result contribute beyond that in the science, and you will also discuss about your strength and then also the weaknesses you have found in your result findings and how it can be useful for the existing literature. So why the discussion matters? So the discussion is one of the most read section of any paper, and it is just not a restatement of result, but a space to interpret and show significance. Uh, that's why it's important, as well as there might be a pitfall, including like repeating the results, or you might speculate without evidence, or make it too short or too long. So we should avoid that things while we are writing our discussion section. So for the beginning, for the effective opening of your paragraph in one, you should make a effective by not simply repeating the results, but you should frame your findings as a contribution to knowledge. For example, instead of saying 20% adherence, say this study is forced to demonstrate that frailty is linked to lower adherence in lung cancer screening. This is just an example of a strong opening. And it's your findings should be, you should mention like why this is important topic, what are your relevant findings. And you can start with, in this study we also found, or our findings are important because, and the weak example can be just if you repeat your result for the effective opening, then it doesn't sound good. So you should try to reframe one of your results into a strong opening sentence. So for the paragraph 2, it's like you have providing more additional information from your findings. So why it's important. So you are mentioning about your secondary outcome, and if you don't have your secondary outcomes, then you will talk about your subgroup analysis or any other sensitivity analysis that will add more richness to your findings. And if, for example, you can start like, in addition to our main finding, we also found that. So you can start like that. And for paragraph 3 or 4, it's more about the literature, sorry. It's more the literature review portion, which is very crucial. And yeah, first you identify, whenever you do any kind of research, you will identify your research area, and then you read the literature review. This is happened before even start of your research question or hypothesis. Then you identify your future direction, and you double check your literature, as well as you discuss with your supervisor, and you come up with a hypothesis and research question. And also after that, also you have to continuously do the literature review and identify your gaps to specific your research gap. So when you are doing all this, and before you even start your research, you will do the literature review. But while you write the manuscript, it might be like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, but over the time there might be lots of publication happen. So every day there is lots of publication out there. So you have to check on your, like, if there is any new publication regarding your research area criteria. So you have to be updated to the current state, and you should cite the case studies and describe like what they have shown and what research gap remains, and how do you that your data address this complication. And you have to lay out your findings and put them into context. So you have to compare your studies with previous studies, and how it consistent with your study result, or how it contrasts with the previous studies findings. And then you expand. You definitely avoid just cherry picking the evidence. You shouldn't just pick the certain literature and cite it and just show the consistent, and not define or not talk about the results that contrast with the previous literature. So this is a continuation will be done in paragraph 4 and 5 regarding the literature review. You describe whether your findings are aligned with others, or if so, then you have to credit them. And if not, so if your results are different than the previous findings, then you have to explain why or why not. So you have to say, for example, our studies support prior findings by research X et al. However, we also found important differences, including so you have to define the differences. Why? So you have to describe beyond the description. It might be biological, behavioral, or methodological explanation. Maybe your population is different, maybe the age group are different, or the methods you have used may be different. So that's why there is a differences in your results. And while you are writing the discussion, you can also use the subheading for multiple outcomes so that the reader is not confused and there is a organized format of your discussion writing. So in the paragraph 6 and 7, you will talk mostly about your limitation in strength. Like you have to think like a reader, and what may a reader think about your key measurements, scientific, whether the validity is concerned like internal validity or external validity, and what did the reviewer raise? So you have to think like a reader, and then you have to address those questions even after you write your manuscript. When you go and reread your manuscript by yourself, you have to think in that way. And you can add a limitation, how your limitation can be managed. For example, if your studies, observational studies, and can shows only association, then you can mention, however, we use method X provide the rigor and confidence in our conclusions. So if there is a way that your limitation can be mitigated, then you should mention about it, like this is our limitation, however, this is mitigated by Y. But in case if your limitation cannot be mitigated, then just mention this is our limitation. Maybe future studies can work on that. So the common mistake here usually we do while writing our discussion is we just rewrite our results word by word, which is should not be done. And suppose overstating like causality from observational data, and you should not ignore the contradictory evidence. And writing too long or unfocused. So whenever you write, it should be organized and clear and also concise. So for writing style tips, you can use the active voice. Our study demonstrate you should be concise and precise, as well as you guide readers with transition, like to have a transition of additionally, in summary, or however. So you are connecting your sentences in that way. So in wrap up, it will be a discussion. It will be first you will interpret your result, and then you will compare your results with the previous literature, and then you acknowledge your limitation, strength, and you will apply in the broader implication how your result can be applied or generalized. And you should always answer the reader question. So what after you have your results? So what difference your results can make, or how your manuscript can contribute. And these are the examples. I would like to ask anybody from the audience to read this slide and answer like which paragraph it belongs to of the discussion. Please go ahead. I can pick the name if you don't want to volunteer. Okay, Sanjeev Saha, I can see your name first. So would you please go and read the slide?
In this population-based study of urban slum, we found 45% of households had inadequate access to safe drinking water, and that this was strongly associated with higher incidence of diarrheal disease among the children under 5. This association remained after adjustment of socioeconomic status and sanitation infrastructure. Our finding confirms the magnitude of water access disparity in low-income urban settings and underscores the need of integrated water sanitation and hygiene interventions in vulnerable communities.
So which paragraph do you think this belongs to? It's like a first, middle, or last paragraph of the discussion.
It's the middle one,
Mm,
second, after second to third.
yeah, so it's a opening paragraph of discussion because it is restating our key findings and it's connecting to the broader problems. So sometimes it can be middle if it's like a uh, maybe like a subgroup analysis or something. But here I was trying to uh, make you all understand that this is like an opening paragraph of the discussion. Thank you very much. Um, so this is another example. So anybody please, otherwise I'll just pick the random name. I think, okay. So let me see who is there. Roma, okay, that might be not a student. Okay, I'm getting confused. Who is participants and who is like a mentors? So maybe,
Anusha.
okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll go with the paragraph first. This study has several limitations. First, because of its cross-sectional design, causal interference is limited. Second, water access was self-reported and may be subject to recall bias. We could not measure water quality at point of use. Third, sanitation categories were crudely dichotomized, which may obscure heterogeneity in sanitation quality. Nevertheless, the study also has a strength, a large community-based sample adjustment for key covariates and sensitivity analysis, excluding households with extreme values.
Thank you. So yeah, please go ahead of which paragraph this belong to.
Uh, this uh, this paragraph can be included in this like second last paragraph, I think, or 6, 7, because in the last paragraph we have to, as as you said, you have to just state that what we found, what is the importance of our manuscript, how we fit in the gaps. So the strength and limitations comes in the, I think, sixth paragraph, right? Like if we
Yeah,
assume.
so it's just before we write our application. So it is around the last paragraph, and it's usually the strength and limitation paragraph. And sometimes the journals might have different structure for sometimes they might separate the limitation like a heading and write the limitation. So depending, but it's usually at the end of the discussion section, just before the implication part. Thank you. There is one more. Okay, so who is there to read this slide? Let me see. Nobody is willing to volunteer. This is not good. Is it Pratiksha Podel?
Okay, so the positive association between inadequate water access and diarrheal incidence is consistent with prior work in rural settings, but differs from studies in peri-urban areas that did not find a significant effect after adjustment. Example, Flores et al. 2019. One possible explanation is that in dense slum areas, water scarcity is more extreme and household adopts riskier coping behaviors, such as collecting water from unprotected sources. Unexpectedly, we observed a weaker association in households with improved sanitation, which may suggest that combined interventions produce synergistic effects. However, measurement error in sanitation classification may attenuate this effect. So I think this could be either second or third paragraph where we are comparing our finding with other studies.
Yeah, it's a middle paragraph. You are absolutely right. Here we are comparing definitely with the existing literature and we are interpreting our findings, as well as we are explaining of the unexpected result. Thank you. So there are few bad versus good middle paragraph examples. So for the bad, it's like our results are similar to other studies or different from others. This shows that results are mixed. And the good example is our findings are consistent with prior work in urban population, but contrast with rural studies that reported weaker association. One possible explanation is that urban food environment expose individuals to different stressor, amplifying the effect of food insecurity on mental health. So why these are good or bad example? Anybody? Okay. Nobody's willing.
I guess, uh,
Yeah, I'm hearing some noise. Who's there?
yeah, bad one, good one. It's bad one because it has only compared to the context, but
Mm-hmm.
not given the reason, and good
Mm-hmm.
one because they have given they have rewritten their result statement, compared and given some reason. Then
That's absolutely true. Because here it's saying the explanation why R1, it's only saying some studies. I don't know which studies, and then saying different from others. So how it differ from others and how it's similar to others, it's this one doesn't explain. Here it's explained, and also like it's giving like why it's similar. So that's very important that you are uh, not only citing your other literature, but you are also reading other literature very clearly, and you know why there is a difference or why there is a similarity. This is also another paragraph, bad versus good for limitations. So if you just write this study has limitation, but they are not important, instead of that, if you write this study has several limitations. First, the cross-sectional design prevent us from drawing causal inferences. Second, food insecurities were self-reported and may be subject to recall bias. Third, we lack information on informal support network that could buffer stress. However, the study is large, nationally representative sample, and standardized measure strengthened confidence in our findings. So here also, you are writing very clear what are your limitation. You are pointing out the now in number 1, 2, 3, and then you are also saying how your study is better. What is the strength of your study? So you have to be clear about what to write and what not to. And also, it's important any manuscript, how much we do our best, there is always a limitation. There is always certain things we cannot overcome. Sometimes it might be a data, sometimes it might be the measurement that we use, or it might be a population. So it's always good to address our limitation rather than hiding that, so that when it goes to your reviewer, they don't point it out like your studies like this and that, and rather you address that and they acknowledge that you know your research. Oh, there is one more bad versus good closing paragraph. So even in conclusion, we always have to be careful, right? If we just write in conclusion, more research is needed. So what is more? We don't know what is more. So for the good one, you should write this result suggests that policy aim at reducing food insecurities may also reduce the mental health burden at population level. This is like you are connecting how it is affecting, and you are connecting with future longitudinal studies are needed to explore causal pathways. In conclusion, ensuring a reliable access to nutritious food is a critical step towards improving population mental health. So you are rewriting your results and then connecting with how the future studies can give a direction to a research, as well as you are saying the implementation part where how your research problem can be addressed. This is an example just I found on the online, and I feel like it's interesting. It's overall discussion where it shows what we discussed just now. So first you want to you want to summarize your main findings, and this parts give reader a clear understanding of what you found and why it is significant. And then you will talk about the scientific finding as an extension of previous work. You connect with previous literature and define your weaknesses, define your consistency and then differences. And as well as you will describe your finding like a scientific implication, how it affects. This is an example of one of the engineering research. So it says like how this engineering will facilitate future research. So basically, you will describe about your findings, how it will facilitate the future research in your area, as well as it provide the forward-looking statement about the field as a whole. So you are connecting your research with the broader implication, and you are summarizing the importance of your research aspect in there. And this is also uh, describing about the previous literature and how it contribute. And then around the end of the discussion, they describe the limitation of the research or the platform, and then finally like how it will facilitate the medical research. So this is just one example. So whenever you are writing your discussion, you might come with lots of your literature review, and you can always refer those papers that is more matching with you. You can read the discussion and see how they are writing some high impact journal. If you find the articles from then also you can get the information like how you can rewrite your discussion. First, you can write your discussion by yourself, but when you read others' parts of discussion, then you will know like how you can change your discussion part or writing part based on the journal you want to publish. So, and the conclusion, which is very important. So in your conclusion, you always restate your main findings. You briefly remind the readers the single most important result. You will not repeat all your result, but just the highlight. Your key findings you will write there, and you explain the broader implication that you will link your result back to public health practice and policy, and so why it matters outside your data set. And this is the example of my paper that got published in JAMA Network Forum. Here you can see in the first sentence, we are saying in this cohort study, least geographic access to thoracic surgeon and radiation oncologist was associated with worse survival of patients with early stage non-small cell lung cancer. So this is the key finding of this study. And then second sentence, it's connecting importantly, geographic access to thoracic surgeon and radiation oncologist was more strongly associated with guideline concordant treatment among patients 70 years or older. So it's specifying like how specific results it's connected, so that it suggests that these socially marginalized patients are sensitive to geographic barriers to cancer care. So it's linking these findings with the broader implication, how it affects the certain group of population. So you can think about your results, key findings, and you can think how it will impact the broader area of your research. And definitely after that, even after implication, you have to point to a future direction or action, suggest that what researcher or practitioner or policy maker should do next. And you have to make it specific, not too vague. And you can have a final synthesis sentence and like a big picture that closes the paper with impact. And you can avoid the cliches like more research is needed unless you specify what research. And this is also the example where it's point to the future direction, where with introduction and implementation of low dose computed tomography screening, more patients with lung cancer are expected to be diagnosed at early stages when tumors are highly treatable and often cured. So it's saying like how it can be treated, lung cancer, as well as what intervention can be targeted. For example, intervention targeting geographic barrier to lung cancer care could improve non-small cell lung cancer treatment, prognosis, and equity. So it's showing like how the big picture can be addressed, or how it will affect the population of cancer population here. So you can write your conclusion short and sweet, but clear and precise. So that's the example for that. And I just thought cover letter is also important. After you write your manuscript and everything, and also once you follow the journal, cover letter is important, where you write your main, whenever you address the editor, they will first read your cover letter and know whether that article is suitable for their journal or not. So you should always go to the journal page and then find the editor's name, where you should address his name at the beginning of your cover letter. And then you should mention your manuscript title in your cover letter, as well as the name of the journal you are submitting, and a statement that your paper has not been previously published or is not under consideration by another journal. As always, you will briefly describe the research area you are reporting in your paper, and why it is important, and why you think the reader of the journal would be interested in your paper. And also you have to mention the contact information for you or any co-author. Usually there will be a contact information of corresponding author, and then corresponding author will write their address and contact information for that section. And the last thing is like you definitely need to have the no competing interest disclosed in your cover letter. And the things that need to be avoided in your cover letter is don't copy your abstract into your cover letter. You should explain in your own words, as well as the significance of your work and problem that can be addressed and why the manuscript belongs to the journal, why it matches. You should know, like there might be many journals, but if you just randomly submit to the any journal, then you will likely to be get rejected. So you should always know like what journal is interested in, what is their research area, and what is your research area. At that time only you can submit, because if you submit instead of public health journal, if you submit in another journal and your research is in public health, then it will get rejected. It's because it doesn't match the research criteria. And also you have to avoid too much jargon or too many acronym. If you have acronym, you have to explain that, and keep your language easy to read and straightforward, as well as avoid too much detail. You should try to have your cover letter maximum of 1 page, and then you can have your introduction and brief overview of your manuscript. And you definitely avoid any spelling or grammar errors, and ensure your letter is truly proofed before submitting. And also the most important, if you have a letterhead of your institute, it's better to write on that. So this is our conclusion, and this is just I found this interesting, where you can see the difference between the conclusion and discussion. So in your discussion, you will interpret your result and compare your result with those from previous study, and you describe the limitation of your result, and you highlight your unexpected result if there are any, and you mention how your results add values to those from previous study. So this is basically your discussion and also the summary of our slides. And for conclusion, you will restate your hypothesis, restate your most important findings, and highlight the limitation of your studies. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm reading opposite, I guess. So this is a highlight the overall significance of your any state future direction. Yeah, this is a fine. But I think the limitation we usually don't write a lot in the conclusion.
Do we have any questions? I think Sanjeev Shah has a question.
Okay. Do we have to only explain contrast in different result or similar aligned result too? Similar align is similar. Okay. Or similar aligned result. Yeah. Obviously, you have to have the similar. Both of you have to have similar and align. And how do we do reasoning? From where we find the reason to explain? Okay, that's a good question. So yeah, it's easy to define the similar or aligned results, but to find the differences, you really need to read the why that is different. So the study that you find different, you need to study the everything on that. So when you go the method section of their studies, you might find something different from yours. So it's not like you can find from somewhere else. You need to understand your own research first, and then you need to understand how they have done the research. So it might be your population might be in suppose it might be your western region of Nepal, and that might be from the eastern region of Nepal. So the population, there might be a variation in population, or there might be, you might have used some, maybe it might, suppose in case of BMI, like the weight height ratio, suppose somebody might have their overweight, like somebody might have self-reported, and you might have done the measurement in the hospital. So you might have accurate, or they might have accurate. So you really need to like read very carefully, like how they have done the research and how you have done the research. So what population are different. So definitely for different contrasts, It's how you read and how you find it. And if you feel confused, then you can talk to your supervisor. Oh, this research I studied, they have different result than ours. Then some other people can brainstorm with you regarding that, like why there is a difference. So you have to read more on that area. Anything else?
There's another question from Susmita Gimire.
Okay. Just a minute. I'm not seeing the
It's
question.
in the chat, or I can read it for you.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. Okay, I can see now. Okay, sorry. Do the justification for the different or similar findings should be backed up with some evidence? We can use our judgment for the, yes, if you find evidence, that would be really nice, because judgment we can do, but sometimes it's always better to have a literature or evidence, because it makes your discussion more logical and concise, as well as it's a backup with the literature. And if you don't find it, then you can just say, we assume this is the reason. So you will write like you are assuming, you are not saying strongly that this is the reason. So you will say your hypothesis, like you are presuming there. So that's how you write it.
Can I add
Anything?
some to ask? For reasoning, do we back with our own findings? Like if we are discussing something about that we have found in our descriptive study, and that has been supported by our regression analysis of our factor associated finding. Can we do backup or expand those reasoning from the findings of our own result?
Yeah,
Or we
depending
have
on situation, depending on your situation. Suppose you have found some association, and maybe you might have this much, like maybe you have 10% or 9% representative, and you might say, because our representative is this much, so we couldn't find a certain significant association, or it's not similar to the previous, because our findings, maybe there might be a socioeconomic, or there might be some differences in your demographic structure or any other variables. You can have the breakdown analysis. Maybe you have done chi-square test or any other test where it shows like your percentage is low or high, or you have differences. In that case, you can say, okay, in our findings, in our sub-analysis or something, we find this, and then you can code like a supplementary table 1 or supplementary table 2. In that way, you can explain, yeah.
that means we can find the reasoning from other literature, and also we can use our own finding for reasoning. That is
Yeah,
true.
you can find from other, but it's like when you find from others, you have to be very careful. If it's similar, then it's like certain factors. Suppose you don't have certain factors in your analysis, then you can say maybe because of these factors, we don't find this reasoning. But and then if another literature find those like those, there is an association of, or there is a confounding because of one factor that you cannot address. In that case, you can cite that article, but you cannot just cite because this research find then our is like this. So it has to be a little bit logical and careful consideration while you cite and write something.
Right. Can I just
Yes.
comment on, just to add to what you're saying is, there may
Yes.
be a reason for difference between your study and somebody else's study for a couple of reasons. One is there's truly a difference, right? Then maybe you can, or maybe there's a difference because of the methodology, as Dr. Shrestha said, the methodological reason. So explore what the possible, is it the methodological reason why you're finding difference, or is it because there's a truly difference? So it's going to have to be specific to how you did the study, and compare based on that, rather than trying to find a reason from outside, I think.
Similar or aligned result, we don't need to explain why we have similar result, or just we have to state this is a similar and skip.
Uh, you can explain if it's required, but mostly like if it's a similar population, you can say like, okay, in this population, which is similar to ours, their research is also having similar findings. You can align or consistent with our results and just have that. Mostly, if there is difference, we explain that more than having a similarity. Yeah. And I think I don't know how everybody write, but I write the discussion after I write the results. So I go opposite. I don't write the introduction first. I write my method section, I write my results, and then I write the discussion because that helps later on too. And also sometimes it difference is like, oh, whatever you are have a research question in your mind at the beginning, it might change later because your result may not give you the exact question you are addressing at first. Sometimes your result might be different, and you might need to even change your uh, writing strategy. Maybe you have to even, you might even change your research hypothesis depending on your result, what you have found. You might found something interesting than what you have expected. So you can always change those things later on after you have your findings on your hand.
So one of the things that, if I can add, you may want to be a little bit careful when you are saying, if your results is similar or different, because sometimes we, rely so much on this, magical p-value of 0.05, and sometimes you have to be very careful. And so you may want to just go and read that paper before you say, oh, they found a similar one, because remember, if you find similarity or differences, I think Dr. Pratibha, mentioned earlier, you have to focus a little bit on the population, right? She mentioned maybe your study is from Eastern Nepal and the other study was from Western Nepal, so maybe it is different. Maybe previous study had 50 people and then you had 1,000 people. Well, you are more powered than somebody else's, so don't be fooled about, oh, they had a different result. Well, they are not powered. The other one is statistical analysis. I think Dr. Pratibha mentioned that too. Maybe you used a different statistical method and then they used a different statistical method. Similar with the measurement. Maybe you used a more valid measurement, and then the others did not. Just be a little bit careful if you want to put weight on your manuscript. Don't just make it sound like it is a replication of a study. I mean, we do need replications, right? I mean, replications strengthens, evidence, but just make sure that it is not a study that you are replicating from somebody has done it before. The other thing that I wanted to, point out, and then I'll let others chime in, is limitations. Don't let your limitations, just write saying, oh, we are limited with this, we are limited with that. I always say, yes, state the limitations, be upfront, but spin it and say, what did you do with it? You had a limitation. So one key example is maybe you had your sample size was small. So you can say, hey, our study sample size was small. But then you can say, however, we saw similar results like the other studies. So that means you are in the same direction. The strength of the association is maybe not as big, but it's in the same direction and so forth. So don't just say what your limitation is, because you don't want the editor to look at your paper and say, oh, this is a paper full of limitations. You have to make sure that you spin it. Now, don't over exaggerate either, but you make it a scientific argument.
Yes. So it's basically more formal, not like an informal writing. So you have to be careful. And also there is the limitation for every journal, like your manuscript has to be under 3,000 words or 2,500 words. So you have to be careful about that also.
Yeah, just to chime in what Dr. Shrestha and Shrestha said, the the limitation, yeah, every study has limitation, and some limitations have implications, broader implication in terms of the result finding. Other may be limitations, but that limitation actually doesn't substantially change the underlying results that you're finding. One of the classic example I give when we do in epidemiology, when we have a exposure is dichotomous and the outcome is dichotomous, you may they may be when your results you are finding may be underestimating the true effect. Let's say your odds ratio is 2.5, but because of the measurement issues, you know, it probably was stronger than 2.5. So despite the fact that you have a limitations on your measurement, it kind of underestimated the risk, you're still finding a strong association. And if that wasn't a limitation, the odds ratio may be 4 times, right? So it doesn't inherently change the conclusion you're drawing. So some limitations are always address the limitation, also say what's the implication of on the study results, and some implications are actually supports your actually helps you your finding than detracting from what you found.
How many of you have written the discussion section so far now?
So I have done.
Okay. Have you submitted also?
Yeah, I have previously published 3 articles, but that was not as good as now we are explaining. So, yeah,
Yeah,
but
because I feel like every time even we write and rewrite it, there is always an expert in in those field, and they will always have feedback. And sometimes we miss the literature, and sometimes it's really helpful. Sometimes even the critics, sometimes you miss certain points, and there might be a different. Even for the particular research, there might be specialists from different area. And you should never be scared of the reviewer comment because it's always helpful. And whenever you see some comments, you should try to think in a way like why this is the critics or why they are asking this question. So, and even sometimes good reviewers, sometimes they even give you the other citation. Okay, maybe look at this paper or look at that paper. So never feel like bad about like getting rejected or getting, even if you get rejected, if you see the reviewer comments, it's really helpful to submit into another journal with addressing those comments. So
yeah, initially it was like my second result section when I was my initial phase of submitting. First time I submitted my paper and it became like a second section, second result section, and they commented likewise and they suggested me to change few things in this way, giving the example and that taught me a lot in writing
mhm.
a paper and was fruitful for me. And when with this fellowship, I'm also getting so much to learn about how to write the manuscript.
Yeah. And also the always think like your first writing, first draft is anybody, even if we anybody write it, it's not the perfect. When you go and reread, you will feel like, oh, what I have written. So it's always like rewriting, and reading helps a lot. And it's always the first draft will be like, you should be proud that you finish your first draft, but it's always best to go back and rewrite and reread when you have a fresh mind, and it helps a lot. If there is nothing else, then I think we are done for today.
Okay, let me just add one more thing. So as we went through the 4 lectures, you should have, thought of, okay, in the introduction, you're introducing your idea, what you're going to do, right? And then in the method section, you're going to mention how you're going to do it. So it should align what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and the results, be careful. Do not interpret your results. Okay. Results is basically what you found.
Yeah.
And then, like Dr. Pratibha said, it's the discussion. Sometimes I find the discussion more interesting than the study itself, because that's where you're trying to sell the value of your finding, not just in the context of your study, but in the broader literature, what others have found, and what is it that your manuscript is adding to that. Okay, so with this four lecture series, um, hopefully, we provided you some idea about writing a manuscript step by step with those 4 sections. The next series will be more about post-manuscript writing. It will be more about, how you're going to select the journals, what does the journal impact factor means, what is citation, how to find the literature if you already haven't done that yet. There are other, places where you can find literature. You can also, there are some tricks as to how you can fit your manuscript for a particular journal, because each journal has their guidelines, and there are some tools, with that. And also, in a broader sense, what is the best fit, which journal is the best fit for the manuscript that you're writing. So we will have that, concept introduced in the next session. For the fellows, it's also about time that that you will be now presenting your results. So we will have a session where you will all be presenting what you found, and also describe your methods, and then get inputs from the mentors, not just your mentors now, from the other mentors as well. So that is coming soon. Stay tuned.
Oh,
Now,
it's on the,
before,
I have a question. Is it on the same day, like the fifth lecture, or it's a different day?
it's the fifth lecture. That's what the
No, no,
no no
it's on
no 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 no.
the
Sorry,
presenting.
the
Presenting.
presentation of the fellows will be a different day.
Okay, okay. Because I'm
That
like
will be
little, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We haven't set the date yet, but we will discuss, and then we'll let all the mentors. We're trying to maximize as many mentors as possible, so everybody gets feedback besides from their immediate mentors.
Mhm.
Okay. So before we close, does anybody have any questions, especially the fellows? So I see none. So I'm willing to give back the precious 6 minutes that everybody may need, especially during the holiday seasons. Thank you for hanging in there. I know we're caught between the holiday season, so thank you for attending. All right.
Thank you. Okay.